Did you take a blood oath?
There's nobody sticking any needles in me either. That's from movies. That's from The Godfather.
Salvatore Salieri de Laurentiis spoke casually about the world of organized crime. Till date, he is still one of the most feared mafia bosses in the United States, just like Michael Mancuso, the leader of the Bonanno crime family. Let's find out how these legends maintain their grip on power. Lorenzo Manino. In the labyrinthine world of New York's organized crime families, few names carry the weight and mystique of the Gambino family, and at the helm of this legendary criminal dynasty stands a man whose very existence seems to blur the line between reality and legend. Lorenzo Manino, a figure so elusive that law enforcement agencies have spent decades trying to fully understand the scope of his influence and the depth of his criminal empire. Born on July 27, 1959, Lorenzo Manino represents the evolution of mafia leadership in the modern era. Unlike the flamboyant bosses of yesteryear who courted media attention and lived lavish public lifestyles, Manino embodies the new breed of mafia leadership, invisible, calculating, and infinitely more dangerous because of his ability to operate completely under the radar. His ascension to the role of acting boss of the Gambino crime family represents not just a changing of the guard, but a fundamental shift in how organized crime operates in the 21st century. The path that led Manino to the apex of Gambino power is paved with the blood and betrayal that has come to define modern mafia succession. He assumed the acting boss role after Domenico Italian Dom Cefalu stepped down in 2015, following the murder of acting boss Frank Cali in 2019. This transition wasn't merely administrative, it was a seismic shift that placed one of the most sophisticated criminal minds in America at the head of what many consider the most powerful crime family in the nation. What makes Manino particularly terrifying to both law enforcement and rival criminal organizations is his ability to maintain the Gambino family's vast criminal enterprise while keeping himself virtually invisible to public scrutiny. The Gambino family under his leadership continues to be involved in labor and construction racketeering, gambling, loan sharking, extortion, money laundering, and fraud, with operations extending from New York to California. This isn't just a local crime syndicate, it's a transcontinental criminal corporation with tentacles reaching into every major industry and every significant metropolitan area in America. The scope of Manino's influence becomes even more chilling when you consider the historical context of Gambino power. This is the same family that once counted John Gotti among its leaders, the same organization that has survived federal investigations, internal wars, and the imprisonment of countless members. Yet under Manino's leadership, the family has not only survived but thrived, adapting its operations to the digital age while maintaining the traditional codes and structures that have made the Gambino name synonymous with organized crime excellence. What law enforcement finds most disturbing about Manino's leadership style is his ability to insulate himself from direct criminal activity while maintaining absolute control over the family's operations. He operates through layers of insulation, using trusted lieutenants and time-tested communication methods that make it nearly impossible for investigators to build cases against him directly. This isn't just criminal leadership, it's criminal genius operating at the highest levels of sophistication. Manino's leadership maintains the Gambino family's status as a significant player in organized crime, though it operates more discreetly than in its heyday. This discretion, however, should not be mistaken for weakness. If anything, it represents a more evolved and dangerous form of criminal leadership, one that has learned from the mistakes of previous generations and adapted to the realities of modern law enforcement, while losing none of its capacity for violence and intimidation. While Manino perfects the art of invisible leadership from the shadows, our next figure represents the complete opposite approach, turning criminal sophistication itself into an art form that has elevated his organization to legendary status within the underworld. Liborio Barney Balomo. In the pantheon of American organized crime, certain families have earned reputations that transcend their criminal activities and enter the realm of legend. The Genovese crime family has long been considered the Ivy League of the American Mafia, and at its helm sits a man whose name strikes fear into the hearts of both allies and enemies. Liborio Barney Balomo, a leader whose combination of intelligence, ruthlessness, and strategic brilliance has made him one of the most respected and feared figures in organized crime. Born on January 8, 1957, Liborio Salvatore Balomo has been the boss of the Genovese crime family since 2019 following his release from prison, but his story begins much earlier in the shadowy world of mafia succession and power struggles that have defined organized crime for generations. He was identified as the acting boss as early as 1990, which means that for over 3 decades, Balomo has been at the center of one of America's most powerful and sophisticated criminal organizations. What makes Balomo particularly dangerous is not just his longevity in a world where survival is measured in in years rather than decades, but his ability to maintain and expand the Genovese family's influence during an era when most crime families have seen their power diminish significantly. His leadership represents a masterclass in criminal evolution, adapting traditional mafia structures and methods to modern realities while maintaining the core principles that have made the Genovese family the most respected criminal organization in America. The Genovese family under Balomo's leadership is known for its low-profile operations, focusing on labor racketeering, illegal gambling, and extortion. This focus on discretion and sophistication over flashy displays of power represents a fundamental understanding of how to operate effectively in the modern criminal landscape. While other families have fallen victim to their own publicity and the attention it brings from law enforcement, the Genovese family under Balomo has perfected the art of invisible influence. The structure of Balomo's organization reads like a corporate hierarchy, but one where the consequences of failure are measured not in termination, but in elimination. Balomo's inner circle includes key figures like underboss Ernie Muscarella and street boss Danny Pagano, creating a command structure that ensures both efficiency and insulation from law enforcement. This isn't just criminal organization, it's criminal sophistication operating at levels that would make legitimate corporations envious. What law enforcement finds most troubling about Balomo's leadership is his family's ability to maintain significant influence across multiple states and industries while keeping their activities largely invisible to public scrutiny. The Genovese family is considered the Ivy League of the American Mafia, maintaining significant influence in New York and New Jersey. This influence isn't just regional, it extends into labor unions, construction companies, legitimate businesses, and political organizations, creating a web of corruption and influence that touches virtually every aspect of economic life in the Northeast. Balomo's reputation within the criminal underworld is that of a leader who combines old-school mafia values with modern business acumen. He understands that the most effective criminal organizations are those that operate like successful businesses, with clear hierarchies, defined responsibilities, and strategic planning that extends years into the future. Under his leadership, the Genovese family has become less a traditional crime family and more a criminal corporation with diversified interests and sophisticated operational methods. The longevity of Balomo's leadership speaks to something even more chilling than his criminal capabilities: his ability to inspire the kind of loyalty and fear that keeps criminal organizations intact across decades. In a world where betrayal is common and law enforcement constantly seeks to turn members against their leaders, Balomo has maintained control through a combination of strategic brilliance, calculated violence, and an understanding of human nature that would be impressive in any context. Where Balomo has mastered the art of criminal sophistication and institutional strength, our next boss represents something entirely different: the remarkable ability to rebuild from chaos and transform weakness into formidable power. Michael Mancuso. In the brutal hierarchy of organized crime, nicknames often tell stories that reveal more about a person's character and reputation than any formal biography ever could. Michael the Nose Mancuso's moniker might seem almost comical to outsiders, but within the deadly serious world of the Bonanno crime family, it represents something far more sinister: the keen instincts and ruthless intelligence of a man who has not only survived but thrived in one of the most violent and unstable crime families in American history. Michael Mancuso has been the boss of the Bonanno crime family since 2013, following the conviction of Vincent Bassiano. This ascension to power represents more than just another changing of the guard in organized crime. It signifies the stabilization of a family that had been torn apart by internal conflicts, federal investigations, and the kind of betrayals that have destroyed lesser criminal organizations. Under Mancuso's leadership, the Bonanno family has not only survived its turbulent past, but has emerged as a formidable force in the modern landscape of organized crime. The Bonanno family's history reads like a catalog of everything that can go wrong in organized crime: internal wars, high-profile defections, federal infiltration, and leadership crises that would have destroyed most criminal organizations. Yet Mancuso inherited this legacy of chaos and transformed it into something resembling order, demonstrating the kind of leadership abilities that are rare in any field, let alone in the treacherous world of organized crime where a single mistake can result in imprisonment or death. The Bonanno family under Mancuso engages in racketeering, extortion, loan sharking, and illegal gambling, with operations in New York and other regions. But what makes Mancuso's leadership particularly impressive is not just the breadth of these operations, but the fact that he has managed to rebuild and maintain them while keeping the family structure intact and functional. This represents a level of organizational skill that goes far beyond simple criminal activity. It's criminal leadership at its most sophisticated and effective. What law enforcement finds most concerning about Mancuso's leadership is his ability to learn from the mistakes that nearly destroyed the Bonanno family in previous decades. Despite historical internal conflicts, Mancuso has stabilized the family, maintaining its presence in organized crime. This stabilization hasn't come through weakness or compromise. It has been achieved through a combination of strategic violence, careful personnel management, and an understanding of the delicate balance required to maintain authority in a world where respect is earned through fear and loyalty is maintained through a combination of reward and intimidation. The nickname The Nose takes on a more ominous meaning when you understand it in the context of Mancuso's reputation for being able to smell trouble before it develops into serious problems for his organization. This instinct for danger and opportunity has allowed him to navigate the treacherous waters of modern organized crime while avoiding the pitfalls that have destroyed other leaders and their families. It's this combination of intuition and intelligence that has made him one of the most respected and feared figures in the American Mafia. Mancuso's leadership style represents a return to traditional Mafia values while incorporating modern operational methods. He understands that in the current environment, successful criminal leadership requires not just the ability to inspire fear and command loyalty, but also the sophistication to operate complex criminal enterprises that can adapt to changing law enforcement tactics and evolving criminal opportunities. Under his guidance, the Bonanno family has become a model for how traditional organized crime can evolve and thrive in the 21st century. The transformation of the Bonanno family under Mancuso's leadership from a chaotic, self-destructing organization to a stable and profitable criminal enterprise represents one of the most impressive turnarounds in organized crime history. This isn't just criminal rehabilitation, it's criminal renaissance, demonstrating that even the most damaged and dysfunctional criminal organizations can be rebuilt and revitalized under the right leadership. While Mancuso represents the power of criminal renewal and strategic rebuilding, our next figure embodies something far more fundamental: the weight of institutional memory and the terrifying wisdom that comes from surviving nearly 9 decades in America's most dangerous criminal landscape. Salvatore Salieri De Laurentiis. Beyond the towering skyscrapers and bustling streets of New York City, in the heartland of America, where the winds off Lake Michigan carry whispers of a criminal legacy that stretches back nearly a century, sits a man whose very existence represents the last link to one of the most legendary and feared criminal organizations in American history. Salvatore Salieri De Laurentiis, at 86 years old in 2025, embodies something that is rapidly disappearing from the American criminal landscape. The old-school mafia boss who has survived every war, weathered every investigation, and outlasted virtually every contemporary to remain at the helm of the Chicago outfit. Salvatore De Laurentiis is the reputed boss of the Chicago outfit, a major Midwestern crime syndicate. But to understand the significance of his position and the fear he continues to inspire, one must appreciate the historical context of the Chicago outfit itself. This is the organization that once counted Al Capone among its leaders, the same criminal syndicate that pioneered many of the methods and structures that became standard operating procedure for organized crime throughout America. Under De Laurentiis' leadership, this legacy continues not as a museum piece, but as a living, breathing criminal enterprise that adapts and thrives in the modern era. At 86, De Laurentiis represents something increasingly rare in organized crime institutional memory combined with active leadership. He has witnessed the golden age of organized crime, survived its decline, and now presides over its modern evolution. This longevity isn't just remarkable from a personal standpoint, it's terrifying from a law enforcement perspective because it represents decades of accumulated knowledge, connections, and criminal expertise that few individuals in any field, legitimate or otherwise, could hope to match. The Chicago outfit under De Laurentiis is involved in loan sharking, gambling, and labor racketeering, with active crews in Cicero and Elmwood Park. These operations might seem modest compared to the outfit's historical activities, but they represent something far more significant: the distillation of nearly a century of criminal evolution into its most efficient and profitable forms. De Laurentiis hasn't just maintained these operations, he has refined them to operate with a level of efficiency and discretion that would be impressive in any business context. What makes De Laurentiis particularly formidable is his understanding of how to operate in the modern criminal landscape while maintaining the traditional values and methods that have kept the Chicago outfit intact for generations. De Laurentiis maintains a low profile, but the outfit remains a significant force in the Midwest. This low profile isn't a sign of weakness or decline. It's a strategic choice that reflects a deep understanding of how to maintain power and influence without attracting unwanted wanted attention from law enforcement or rival criminal organizations. The Chicago outfit, under De Laurentiis' leadership, represents something unique in modern organized crime, a criminal organization that has successfully transitioned from the dramatic, high-profile operations of its past to a more subtle but equally effective approach that emphasizes long-term stability over short-term gains. This transformation reflects not just criminal adaptability, but criminal wisdom accumulated over decades of experience in one of America's most challenging and competitive criminal environments. De Laurentiis' age, rather than being a liability, has become one of his greatest assets. In a world where young criminals often lack the patience and wisdom necessary for long-term success, his decades of experience provide a strategic advantage that cannot be replicated or quickly acquired. He understands the cyclical nature of law enforcement attention, the importance of maintaining relationships across generations of criminals, and the delicate balance required to keep a criminal organization profitable and intact over decades. The fear that De Laurentiis continues to inspire isn't based solely on his personal capacity for violence or intimidation. It's rooted in the recognition that he represents institutional knowledge and criminal expertise that has been tested and refined over nearly 9 decades of life and more than half a century of criminal leadership. When someone with that level of experience and proven track record makes decisions or takes positions, it carries weight that extends far beyond the immediate circumstances. Where De Laurentiis represents the wisdom and discretion of old-school criminal leadership, our next boss operates from an entirely different playbook, embracing publicity and personality in ways that would terrify most modern crime leaders, yet somehow making it work to his advantage. Joey Merlino. In an era when successful organized crime leadership increasingly demands invisibility and discretion, Joseph "Skinny Joey" Merlino represents something of an anachronism, a throwback to the days when mafia bosses were larger-than-life figures who commanded attention and respect through sheer force of personality as much as through fear and intimidation. Yet this apparent contradiction has made him one of the most fascinating and dangerous figures in modern organized crime, a man who has somehow managed to maintain relevance and power in a world that has largely moved beyond the flashy, high-profile leadership style that he embodies. Born on March 13, 1962, Joseph "Skinny Joey" Merlino has been the boss of the Philadelphia crime family since the 1990s, though he was reportedly demoted in 2024. This timeline reveals something remarkable about Merlino's staying power. He has maintained leadership of a major crime family for over 3 decades, surviving federal investigations, internal challenges, and the general decline of organized crime that has destroyed or severely weakened most of his contemporaries. The Philadelphia crime family under Merlino's leadership has always operated somewhat differently from its counterparts in New York or Chicago. The Philadelphia family engages in gambling, loan sharking, drug trafficking, and extortion, but what sets Merlino apart is his willingness to maintain a public profile that would make most modern crime bosses extremely uncomfortable. This isn't recklessness, it's a calculated strategy that has allowed him to build a reputation and maintain influence in ways that more secretive leaders cannot match. Merlino's high-profile persona makes him a notable figure, despite the family's reduced influence. This reduction in influence, however, should be understood in relative terms. While the Philadelphia family may not wield the same power it once did, under Merlino's leadership it has remained viable and profitable when many other regional crime families have simply faded into irrelevance or been absorbed by larger organizations. What makes Merlino particularly dangerous is his ability to inspire loyalty and maintain control through charisma and personality, as much as through traditional methods of fear and intimidation. In a criminal environment where leaders often rule through terror alone, Merlino has cultivated a different kind of respect, one based on personal magnetism, strategic brilliance, and a reputation for taking care of those who remain loyal to him and his organization. The reported demotion in 2024 adds another layer to Merlino's story, suggesting that even within his own organization, there are those who believe that his high-profile approach may have become more of a liability than an asset. Yet the fact that he remains a significant figure despite this apparent setback speaks to the depth of his influence and the strength of his position within the criminal underworld. Leaders who can survive demotion and continue to wield influence are rare in any field, but in organized crime, where such changes often result in elimination rather than mere reduction in status, it's virtually unprecedented. Merlino's approach to criminal leadership represents a fascinating study in contrasts, maintaining traditional mafia structures and values while operating with a public visibility that would terrify most modern crime bosses. This willingness to operate in the spotlight has made him a favorite target of both law enforcement and media attention, yet he has managed to survive and thrive despite this constant scrutiny. The longevity of Merlino's career raises important questions about the effectiveness of different leadership styles in organized crime. While his contemporaries have chosen invisibility and operated from the shadows, Merlino has proven that there is still room in modern organized crime for leaders who are willing to take risks and maintain public profiles, provided they have the intelligence and strategic acumen to manage the additional challenges that such visibility creates. In stark contrast to Merlino's flashy, high-profile approach to criminal leadership, our final boss represents the complete opposite philosophy, proving that sometimes the most dangerous leaders are those you never see coming. Joseph "Jackie the Kid" Giacalone. In the industrial heartland of America, where the ghosts of automotive glory mingle with the harsh realities of urban decay, there exists a criminal empire that operates with the precision of the assembly lines that once made Detroit the envy of the world. At the helm of this organization sits a man whose unassuming nickname belies the sophisticated and ruthless intelligence that has made him one of the most effective and feared crime bosses in the Midwest. Joseph "Jackie the Kid" Giacalone, leader of the Detroit Partnership, an organization that has survived every challenge thrown at it while maintaining a level of operational security that would be impressive in any intelligence agency. Joseph Giacalone is the boss of the Detroit crime family, also known as the Detroit Partnership, succeeding his predecessors in the early 2000s. This ascension to power came during a period when many regional crime families were either disbanding entirely or being absorbed by larger organizations. Yet under Giacalone's leadership, the Detroit Partnership has not only survived, but maintained its independence and operational effectiveness in one of America's most challenging urban environments. The Detroit Partnership represents something unique in American organized crime, a criminal organization that has successfully adapted to the economic and social changes that have transformed one of America's great cities, while maintaining the traditional structures and values that have kept it viable for generations. The Detroit family is involved in gambling, loan sharking, and racketeering, with operations in Michigan and Ohio. But what makes these operations particularly impressive is their ability to function effectively in an environment that has seen massive economic upheaval and population decline. What law enforcement finds most troubling about Giacalone's leadership is his family's ability to operate with virtual invisibility while maintaining significant criminal influence across multiple states and industries. Giacalone maintains a low-key operation, keeping the family active but less prominent. This low profile isn't a sign of weakness or decline. It's a sophisticated strategy that allows the organization to operate effectively without attracting the kind of attention that has proven so damaging to other crime families. The nickname "Jackie the Kid" might suggest youth or inexperience, but in the context of Giacalone's leadership, it represents something far more significant: the ability to maintain the kind of operational flexibility and adaptability that older, more established organizations often lose over time. Under his guidance, the Detroit Partnership has demonstrated the ability to evolve and adapt to changing circumstances while maintaining the core competencies that have made it a viable criminal organization for decades. Giacalone's approach to criminal leadership reflects a deep understanding of the unique challenges facing regional crime families in the modern era. Unlike the high-profile families of New York or the historical prominence of Chicago, the Detroit Partnership under his leadership has perfected the art of profitable invisibility, maintaining significant criminal operations while staying almost completely out of public view and media attention. The geographic scope of the Detroit Partnership's operations under Giacalone reveals the sophistication of his strategic thinking. Rather than limiting the organization to Detroit's declining urban core, he has expanded operations to encompass more prosperous areas in Michigan and Ohio, demonstrating the kind of business acumen that has allowed the family to remain profitable and viable, even as the economic landscape around it has changed dramatically. Thanks for watching. Check out other cards on the screen.